Hello, welcome to Scott's Odyssey. Pennsylvania has its fair share of cryptids. Bigfoot, the Waterford Sheepman, Gawaggle, Bernathan Beast, Ape-Boy, Dogman, Potter, Nondescript, Thunderbird, Werewolves, the Albatwitch, and the Squonkum I've talked about in previous videos, and even a few others. But in this video, I'm going to talk about one in my own backyard that I can prove truly exists, or at least existed, based on simply reviewing some history and some videos that we've already talked about on this channel. And that particular cryptid is Raystown Ray. See you in a minute.
Not as famous as lake monsters go, like Nessie, Champa, Rogo, Pogo. Being content, he makes his descent. Raystown Ray, it's time well spent. His playground punches 200 feet, 30 miles long with plenty to eat. But Ray isn't some barbarian, he's strictly vegetarian. Raystown Ray, Raystown Ray, please show yourself to us today. We know that some say you're not real, but we know you're the real deal. Rise up to break the surface here. Oh, how we yearn to see you near. The big lake is made to frolic and play. Won't you indulge us, Raystown Ray? How Ray got here's not quite clear. This lake hasn't been here that many years. Skeptics scoff and still debate of Ray's existence in this great state. Crown jewel of Huntington County, paradise for a fisherman's bounty. There's plenty of space for Ray to thrive, and many who swear he's alive. Raystown Ray, Raystown Ray.
Welcome back. If you've watched my videos before, thank you for your patronage. And if you're new to Scott's Odyssey, welcome aboard. I want to let my viewers know that Raystown Ray has been on my list since the very first inception of this channel. And that's Mr. Raven. I figured it'd be an epic video to tell the backstory of how Raystown Ray came about, and then bash it with words and science to give you all a wonderful ride into how mythologies come about. Fortunately, the channel took a turn away from conspiracy and disproving things in such a manner, and instead we went deeper into history and telling you all the facts with none of the fictional stories that have been made up over time. Proving that history, when you know the whole story, will tell you exactly who we once were and usually still are today. So the Raystown Ray video kept getting pushed out because of all the hokiness that surrounds it. And I just did not want to deal with a backlash of locals who would be banging on my door telling me how they actually witnessed Raystown Ray with his beard and his humped back, and how he was a plesiosaurus, not to be confused with a pliosaur or hybodont. Then it happened. Yep, with my superpower of pattern recognition, along with the superpower of remembering everything I've ever read and learned since I was a small child, and the volumes of historical data that I've plowed through to make many of these videos, I put together the fact that, although mostly circumstantial information and little empirical data, Raystown Ray is, or at least was, very real. I became a believer. And in this video, I'm going to explain why I became a believer, and want all of you to provide me viable conjecture, if you have any, in the comment section down below. Buckle up, everybody. We're going for a ride.
Some say you're not real, but we know you're the real deal. Rise up to break the surface here. Oh, how we yearn to see you near. The big lake is made to frolic and play. Won't you indulge us, Raystown Ray?
Raystown Lake, firstborn of Raystown Creek back in 1907, was the brainchild of brothers George Ernest and Warren Brown Simpson. In 1905, the two had the idea while fishing bass along the Raystown Creek that it would make quite the viable location for a hydroelectric dam. Now, you need to realize that power in this valley and the surrounding locations was spotty at best, and the new hydroelectric dams were popping up everywhere around the country. Just a year previous to their idea, Petersburg had applied to the state for land charters to build a hydroelectric dam, which eventually ran side by side during the building phase of the old Raystown Dam. So everyone was doing their best to improve the infrastructure of the Commonwealth and bring power to their homes and towns. This energy boom was to be expected. I mean, this entire area was booming with vacationers, whom were all followed by someone trying to make a buck off of them, no matter what it took. One of those that were most popular were amusement parks, like Lakemont Park in 1894, Del Grosso Amusement Park in 1909. Later on, the Altoona built their Speedway in 1923 and the world's largest concrete swimming pool in 1923, all based on the influx of people coming into these parts of central Pennsylvania to visit a lake formed by a dam that was larger than all the smaller local lakes combined. Along with the building of these types of venues, roving and traveling entertainment went into a boom as well, such as circuses. Now, circuses and cowboy sideshows had been popular all over the US at the time of the late 1800s, but almost all of them traveling from the east in order to go to the west had to pass through the Altoona and Raystown area. I mean, there was no other way to go west effectively. So there would be upward of 80 circus trains passing through this area in the course of a single summer. Unfortunately, there were over 21 train wrecks involving circus trains, and I talked about that in depth with the Walter L. Main train wreck that happened in 1893. A video which will be linked below, and I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already seen it. I know that seemed like a large derailment, pun intended, from the topic of Raystown Ray, but there's more to mentioning the circus train wrecks than meets the eyes. Anyway, the story of Raystown Ray doesn't pop up until about 1962. As it is alleged, in 1962, the local police received a report that something was very large swimming beneath the water in the Raystown Dam. The local newspaper, the Huntington Daily News, picked this up and wrote an article about what was seen. Many other sightings were heard about all around the lower portion of the lake over the next decade. That is, until the military arrived and did the things that they did with their building of a new dam and tank shooting practice within the valley. What? You didn't know that there were tanks brought into the valley that performed shooting practice on old buildings and structures and then drove all around the valley doing tests? That's okay. We'll touch on that in the future with another old Raystown Dam video. In 1972, Hurricane Agnes came along and filled up the Raystown Valley just as the building of the new dam was completed. Several years later, the Raystown Ski Club, a water skiing club where they perform stunts and fancy water skiing tricks, had almost canceled one of their events due to someone actually seeing something very large and dark under the water and capturing it on film. As it moved on under the gaze of a crowd of attendees, they waited for it to leave the area, and then they continued with their event. The claims were that this thing was anywhere from 30 to 60 feet in length. Not very wide, but with a somewhat discernible thickness difference between its neck, abdomen, and tail. Then things got quiet for a very long time. Nothing in papers, only stories being told about other people seeing something big in the waters of the new Raystown Lake. That is, until 2006. The Huntington Daily News posted an article in 2006 titled Loch Ness Town. All the claims of a plesiosaur, like the Loch Ness Monster, made in the article were backed by the then Raystown Army Corps of Engineers Operations Manager, Dwight Beal, and wildlife biologist of the Baltimore District stationed at Raystown Lake, Jeffrey Krause. Quoted in the article, Beal stated that they knew about this creature and that it has been in there a while now. His claim was that, and I quote, "It's a private creature, but comes out around this time of the year. Call it Raystown's own Punxsutawney Phil. Krause was quoted as stating, "I believe it must be a vegetarian. We have not seen any evidence of this animal taking fish, geese, otters, or ducks. So I would suggest that our swimmers and boaters are very safe. It appears this animal's habits are similar to manatees, which are completely herbivorous and gentle. The increase of weed beds around the lake is probably providing more food in the shallows for herbivores, and that would increase sightings," end quote. Since the newspaper published its article and the claim that they are actually aware of this creature existing by two professionals, one in the Army Corps of Engineers Operations Management and one in the Army Corps of Engineers Environmental Team, the sightings have been pouring in ever since, albeit without photographs or any video evidence. In 2010, and based on the fact that two members of the Army Corps of Engineers claim this creature exists, the Sci-Fi Channel's show, Fact or Fake Paranormal Files, sent in an actual team to the lake to investigate the possibility that an actual cryptid existed within the lake. Although no evidence was captured, they did conclude that the credibility of the witness reports were more than enough to decide that this creature very possibly exists within the Raystown Lake. Many investigations still seek to find Raystown Ray, searching for some elusive plesiosaur of the likes of Nessie within the lake, but none have been found. No evidence and no further determinations of Ray are even seen. So what is the final determination? Well, let's dig into this and see who we once were and if it matches with who we are today. I did a significant amount of research on this and came to my own conclusions that can back up that Raystown Ray is, or at least was, probably real. But before we hit that, let's analyze the information provided by the Huntington Daily newspaper in conjunction with the Raystown Ski Club, Army Corps of Engineers, and a few other actors. Did the Huntington Daily newspaper release an article in 1962 regarding the sightings at or near the dam? No, definitely no. There were no articles, side articles, in the Huntington Daily News, nor in any street rag, and nothing in any police reports in any way, shape, or form regarding anything out of the ordinary appearing in the lake, Old Raystown, or near the Old Raystown Dam. Is the photograph at the Raystown Ski Club and the story of what transpired there true and real? This one's a little bit trickier. I honestly didn't even know that there was a Raystown Ski Club until I read about it on a cryptid wiki site. And that is also where I found an image of what clearly looks like what I would imagine a ski club would look like. The ski club did exist, but there was nothing in any police report, Army Corps of Engineer report, or newspaper article that said anything about this sighting. The story claims the sighting paused an event as onlookers watched the dark figure under the water swim away. But I don't see anyone on the stands, nor lurking around in the background, not even people who would have been staffing the event or the site within the picture. So my guess is that the picture is just a random internet grab to push a narrative, and that it probably isn't even a photo of the Raystown Ski Club observation site. What about the information provided by the Army Corps of Engineers Operations Manager, Beale, and their biologist, Krause? Well, they really did say those things. It was legitimately in the article written by the Huntington Daily News. Now, the fact that the Army Corps of Engineers apparently knew of this thing and nobody was talking about it or looking for it, it kind of blows my mind. Although there is something awfully sus about the way he likened it to Punxsutawney Phil, and the inconsistency of an alleged professional marine biologist to make such a claim that because a wild animal is a vegetarian as opposed to an herbivore, and to follow it up with saying swimmers and boaters are very safe because how? Why? Do the plant-eating herbivores not attack humans? Last I checked my personal list of safe herbivores, the gorillas, rhinos, elephants, and hippos were some of the supposed ones to stay far away from. Yeah, I know. They're not found in Pennsylvania, but neither are plesiosaurs. And if you want examples of herbivores you shouldn't be getting in the way of, You can look at the fun rats, squirrels, most mice, possums, and all of the wild boars. I would have said deer as well, but as it turns out, they have no problem stomping a snake, bird, or rabbit for some meat, which makes them omnivores. So in my head of spinning thoughts and pattern recognition, I saw something which made me recheck the information I was digesting and how I was reading it. One thing that stood out was that Operations Manager Beal stated it is usually seen during this time of the year, making me look deeper at the newspaper article release, which was really odd. The odd portion of the article is that it was released on a very peculiar date, that date being April 1st of 2006. So with that information, it was time to do a lot more digging in the direction of what I will refer to as bad actors. As it would turn out, the story of Raystown Ray started with one bad actor and brought more in as he needed, all for the sake of money. Are you surprised by that? As claimed by Dwight Beal, he was approached by the director of the Huntington County Visitors Bureau, Sean Waddle, who requested Beal to join him in a fabrication of some creature that lived deep in the waters of Lake Raystown, similar to the Loch Ness Monster. Beal then recruited biologist Krause, who at first didn't want his reputation to get tarnished, but eventually fell in line with both Waddle and Beal. Beal's claim is that it was all part of a gag and attempts to push the narrative onto the Huntington Daily News for the creation of this fabrication because they ran it in the April 1st edition of their paper. And the problem is, that's called gaslighting. And what makes it worse is that it was never identified as a gag for April Fool's Day. Beal, Krause, and Waddle never retracted their statements. As a matter of fact, Waddle pressed it for many years as an attractor for visitors to go to this lake and visit this area. And it wasn't until 2017, when pressed, that Beal actually informed a small group that it was a hoax from the start.
Raystown Ray, and we'll put the truth out there now, finally. Huntington County, the Daily News, which is the local newspaper, used to, on every April 1st, do a gag article. Raystown Ray was the gag article back whenever Raystown Ray was born. If they go into the imagination of the then director of the Huntington County Visitors Bureau, Sean Waddle, Sean came to me one day and said, I got this idea for the Daily News April Fool's edition, the gag. Would you play along? And so he told me what it was. I said, yeah, sounds like fun.
And where was the newspaper and the County Visitors Bureau, or even a basic news agency, now that the lake had received so much global coverage on multiple occasions from large networks, pouring money into the lake and the area and the lake's attractions through television and books? You see, that's when those who make up a story and gaslight people into giving money become bad actors, shills if you prefer. But that's not the end of this video, because at the beginning I told you I was going to give you the information from history that dictates Raystown Ray, or at least the monster of Raystown Lake, may have actually been very real. If you remember earlier on in the video, I made a comment about the Walter L. Main circus train wreck of 1893. Well, interestingly enough, there was a lot of lost and killed animals in that train wreck. Some of them were monkeys, lions, tigers, hyenas, exotic birds, and, well, exotic reptiles. Here's my working theory. Of the exotic reptiles, there were several types of Burmese pythons, reticulated pythons, and a couple of anaconda. As it would turn out, most of these creatures are believed to only live a few short years, something in the order of 20 to 30 years at best. Likewise, they are very specifically recorded in lengths between 15 and 32 feet. These animals are atypical tropical animals, and it would be expected that they would die in the cold of Pennsylvania during the winter. But believe it or not, these things were trucked around in train cars with no heat during the winter all around the Northeast corridor of the United States with little to no adverse effects. They would just do what our existing snakes do in Pennsylvania and go into hibernation. To add to the interesting things about these types of snakes is their length. Although we have records of 32 and almost 33 feet long reticulated python. We now actually have confirmation of an anaconda at 36 feet long. Top that off with the adjustment made where scientists have discovered they can live up to 40 years in captivity and possibly longer in nature if they have no viable predators or threats. Their living habitat depends on ease of availability for food and competition. When food is plenty and competition is low, their living area is simply a 40-mile radius. If they have any issues with food or competition, that distance will increase to a 100-mile distance. That brings us back to the train wreck of 1893. The main wreck took place near Tyrone, a distance of only 27 miles from here. Easy for any of these snakes to make a trip. So an escaped snake made it to the old Raystown Lake sometime around 1893 and wasn't seen until 1962. That's almost 70 years. Here's my thought on that. It wasn't one snake lost. It was a lot. And it wasn't one circus train. Again, it was a lot. But wait, there's more. If you remember, I did a video about the broad-top serpent, the broad-top snake. Of course, the link for that is below if you haven't seen it. In that story, I explained how it was even in the Daily News that Nick Kolenchak saw a 20-foot-long monster snake in 1927 along the Broad-Top and Huntingdon Railroad line. Then again in 1936, Miss Ollie Dorsey in the Trough Creek Valley near Colfax saw one all along the Juniata between Ardenheim and Mill Creek when her husband came and cut its head off with an axe. That wasn't the end. Again in 1940, where Donald Moore and his father out of Saxton witnessed one at the Duval Cemetery in Broad Top. So even after one was beheaded in 1936, another one was witnessed in 1940 by two other people at the other end of the lake. This would suggest that the escaped snakes were doing quite fine in their new little Eden with tons of food, good living conditions, plenty of space, hundreds of caves and tunnels to keep them warm during the winter. Yeah, it was an absolute paradise. So why would it be so difficult or strange to believe that a large snake roaming around trying to get somewhere or find something to eat would be seen swimming under the water in Lake Raystown? Descriptions of a skinny neck to a wide abdomen to a skinny tail. Well, sounds like a snake that just got done eating something of medium size, a really good dinner. Then to avoid the people, decided to dip under the water and take a shortcut to go about its way. Just like every snake you would ever see in this area that is native and natural. We cannot discredit everyone's witness testimony. That only started after the circus train wrecks. Likewise, we cannot just automatically believe in something that we have no proof of. Meaning, no skins, no scat, no bones, no snakes. But then again, it's not like you find the remains of birds in the forest or the remains and scat of the boars, and you rarely see the remains of the coyotes and their scat. Is Raystown Ray real? Well, the rumors state that he was a story spat out by a few bad actors, and I just showed you how Raystown Ray could very likely and possibly be real. In the end, it comes down to the fact that we don't have any real evidence, and that's most likely because we're looking in the wrong direction. But I believe. Let me know down in the comments below if you know of stories and locations such as Raystown Ray that you'd like me to investigate. Let me know if you believe in Raystown Ray. If you've seen them, send me pictures. My research is limited only by the information that people don't share openly. Help me break that barrier, and let's share the history and the culture of who we once were. Remember to give the video a like, hit the subscribe with the bell to get notifications of when the next video is released. This helps the channel more than anything else, and it is just a simple click with no obligations. Check out the merch store for merchandise regarding ODDySEEy and Raystown Ray. I'm going to try and make a shirt up real quick and get it out there. If you would like to help support a creator, jump out to my Patreon or my PayPal and give any form of donation. It gives me the ability to continue bringing you premium content regarding our Pennsylvania history. Don't forget to buymeacoffee.com ODDySEEy. As always, I thank you for watching from the bottom of my heart, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thank you.